Psalm 37 says, "Cease from anger, forsake wrath, do not fret, it only causes harm." And in the Gospel of Luke, Peter says, "See, we have left all and followed you." So Jesus said to them, "Assuredly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or parents or brothers or wife or children for the sake of the kingdom of God who shall not receive many times more in this present time and in the age to come in everlasting life." So we have physical sensations and we have emotions, which are internal feelings. We are multi-leveled beings. And this gives life richness and depth and a wholeness about it. Most of the time, these different levels coexist inside and outside of us without any problem. They support each other. You go to a fine restaurant with a dear friend, and the food is delicious, the environment is beautiful, and there is the enjoyment of conversation and friendship. So the outer and inner levels are both being fed, and that gives a deeper feeling of well-being and peace that just food in a restaurant couldn't give you. But then there are other times in our life when these levels can be in conflict. For instance, you go to a wonderful party, a wedding reception. The decor is beautiful, there's fine music, delicious food, so forth. But if we are depressed, if we come there depressed, feeling empty and lonely, that will persist even though we're in the midst of a crowd of people in a beautiful place with great music. The inner feelings and the external situation don't match. There's a conflict. There are other times when we get caught up in some external pleasure at the expense of higher delights. For instance, we may make a joke at someone else's expense, and it's really funny and everybody laughs, but we are choosing a lower delight of that humor over the higher one of being kind and generous to another person. So we can do that even at the expense of a higher delight if that person then, if it harms the relationship with that person. Since each level of our life has its own pleasure or enjoyments, we can find ourselves choosing between lower or higher delights. One of the great problems with negativity is that we get so much enjoyment out of some lower delight that it blocks us off from a higher one. The lower delight would eclipse the higher one. For instance, perhaps you've experienced wallowing in self-pity, feeling sorry for yourself. That's when you allow the enjoyment of self-pity to get in the way of enjoying, say, being with other people and enjoying their company, enjoying friendship. We might prefer our own miserable company, right, to the pleasure of being with other people, the deeper, the higher delight of being with people. Frank Rose tells the story of the family gathering, and they have the big Christmas meal, and they're sitting around, lazing around, when they realize they should get up and go take a walk. And so they go out, and they just absolutely are invigorated by the experience of the beauty of nature. And they recognize the contrast between that and the numbness they would have had if they had stayed at home. So the higher delight, when they chose it, they felt good about it. Now, these lower delights have their place in our life. We need times of external pleasure when our mind needs to rest, when there is no deep significance to what we're doing. After a day's work, it is good to put our feet up, relax, and just enjoy the sensual part of life. And yet, if that were all we ever did, our lives would be lacking in depth, right? Because the higher delights would not be expressed. There's the example of being in the restaurant. You look over there and you see a person. Frank tells this story. He says he saw this person with food piled high on his plate, and then after the main course, a horrendous dessert. And Frank says, I thought to myself, this man is choosing the pleasure of taste over the delights of having a healthy body. The external physical delight of eating is getting in the way of the superior delight of having general good health. And then, Frank writes, I noticed that I was choosing the lower delight of criticizing my neighbor and passing judgment on someone I didn't even know over the higher delight of loving and honoring him. The part of me that enjoys being contemptible of others and feeling superior was overeating its own particular delight. It was a very low level of pleasure. And in our adolescence, we begin experimenting with this. Teenagers can get caught up in different behaviors that might be minor offenses, like, say, shoplifting. And why do they do it? Well, they do it because they enjoy it, right? This lower delight is being served. There's a rush of excitement, right? It's a good dopamine hit. There's a feeling of glee because of getting away with something illegal, and there's the enjoyment of having something you might not otherwise be able to afford, right? So there could be all kinds of pleasures in shoplifting. This isn't to recommend it, but just to notice this. People who do bad things generally do it because they enjoy it. So what's wrong with that? Well, first, obviously, stealing is hurting other people. And yet, secondly, by indulging in the lower delights associated with stealing, the person is missing the delights of a higher order. They're blocking the satisfaction that comes with making an honest living, in being good neighbors and doing good business. People who have moral standards and try to live honestly, we know, have a satisfaction in their lifestyle that is on a higher level than just the joy that others experience in deceit or fraud. Such people are more at peace with themselves and they experience higher levels of delight. So why do people yell and scream when they're angry? The simple reason is that it's fun to get mad, right? If another person has done something outrageous, that makes the screaming seem to be justified. It's even more fun. So what's so bad about that? Well, again, it robs you of a relationship with that other person that would be based on deeper delights, and it robs you of the deeper satisfaction that comes with living a peaceful life, a cooperative life, right? A community life. And then there are people who are chronic fighters. It seems that there are always reasons to be in a fight. They get stirred up, and if things get calm, they've got to stir them up. Why? There's some part of them that enjoys that. There's a level of pleasure or delight that is being served by that. And yet, why is that problematic? It's because by indulging in that love of upset, they are robbing themselves of higher pleasure and they are damaging relationships with others. So, when the state you are in is somehow negative, dragging you down, coming out of the basement, not being helpful, notice whatever enjoyment you may be having from it. What higher enjoyment is being blocked by the negative delight? Let go of the negative emotion and allow the positive to take its place.